Welcome everyone to NCEA's One-Person Development Office, establishing the No Fright Zone webinar. My name is Kate Reich and I am on hand to help with any technical questions about today's event. Please know that all of your microphone connections with today's webinar have been muted. During the presentation, you may ask questions or provide comments for the presenters by using the chat and/or question functions located in the GoToWebinar panel on the right side of your screen. To use these functions, click on the chat or question bubble and then click into the blank box area and enter your question using your keyboard. Then click Send. The webinar presentation will run for 45 to 50 minutes, which will leave some time at the end for the presenters to answer any questions that you have provided. You will be asked to complete a brief evaluation about this webinar later today, and your feedback is greatly appreciated. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded, and you will all receive a copy of the final recorded presentation, which we will email to you once the recorded file is available. I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Regina Haney, the Executive Director for NCEA's Boards and Councils Department, and Frank Donaldson, President of the Institute of School and Parish Development, as today's webinar presenters. Please welcome Regina and Frank.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks to Frank Donaldson's willingness to share his long and successful experiences in Catholic school development, NCEA offers this great webcast. And this webcast responds to the urgent need of many of our Catholic schools around the country to get assistance with establishing a development office. And usually that development office starts with one person staffing it. So it's an urgent call from these schools, especially elementary schools, to get assistance with setting up a development office. The outstanding boards that the NCEA recognizes annually really supports this idea, this urgent need to have a development office, even if that is staffed by one person. And these outstanding boards show that the schools are viable because they have the support of this development person. So they contribute significantly to the school's viability, and it's that development officer working hand in hand with the committee of the board that really ensures that viability. So we look forward to hearing you, Frank, share with us your tips, your experience, and to provide guidance for us as we establish this one-person development office. But at the same time, I know, Frank, you will affirm those who are already working with the one-person development office. So, Frank, please.
Thank you, Regina, and welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you and share with you. As we take a look at today's agenda, what I'd like to start off with first is to take a look at just some basics of development, pieces that we feel are really important. Most of this for board members and development officers and school administrators, teachers, and volunteers will be sort of a review. But then I'd like to jump into what we have seen here at ISPD over the last 25 years as being keys to success. This is an exciting year for us because we are celebrating our 25th year, and so what we're doing today in today's webinar is sharing some of those experiences of working with Catholic schools, and my background is pretty much the way what we'll be talking about, really having been a Catholic school teacher and administrator and a one-person development officer back in the 80s. So as we look at this, let's take a look at what we mean as we talk about development, because it is something that has been around. I was sharing with some folks last week. We were doing a workshop in development up in the Baltimore area, and I was sharing with them and saying, you know, I can remember back getting started with all of this that the headlines at NCEA Notes, the publication in 1990, was "Development is the key to Catholic schools' future," and it's the same can be applicable today, very definitely. When I use the word development, I also can substitute the word advancement because to us, we're talking about how do we develop our Catholic schools for the future and how do we advance our Catholic schools for the future. The evolution of those words, just like student recruitment has evolved from student recruitment into enrollment management, development has evolved into advancement. And for today, in many cases, like at NCEA at the convention, what we do is the high school tracks are called advancement tracks and the elementary school tracks are called development tracks. So just to clarify that, when I use the word development, I'm also meaning advancement and vice versa. So as we look at this, let's look at some basics. I think it's important that we look at the definition, and we have maintained that development is not about fundraising, that development really is about the meaningful involvement of people in your mission and vision for the future. And I think that the key here is dealing with that particular slide that you'll see here in just a second, is the meaningful involvement. And the key words are meaningfully involving people. I think as you look at that, what we see over and over again is that as we want to develop, many times I remember as a Catholic school administrator years ago, if I wanted to have something done, then I usually would call in 4, 5, 6 people to do it internally. If I wanted to do a fundraiser or I wanted to do whatever, then I would always count on what we call those first ripple people of maybe 20, 30, 40 people. And it's sort of like dropping that pebble in the pond because when I drop the pebble in the pond, the first ripple are going to be those 25, 50, 100 people that we've always counted on in Catholic schools, but yet there's a second ripple of people. And this is usually 50, 100 or more people who would love to get involved, but they simply do not get involved because of one basic reason, and that is we do not invite them personally. And you know, there's a third ripple of people that would love to get involved, and a fourth ripple of people, but in many cases we don't know too much about them. We don't know much about our alums. In many cases, we don't even know a lot about our parents, other than where they live, what they do, and those who raise their hand and say, I'd like to help. The same thing with past parents, the same thing with grandparents, the same thing with building business partnerships. So as we talk about development, what we really are talking about is how do we engage people? And what we have seen through the years is there is a way to do that. So let's take a look at the 7 I's. And basically with the 7 I approach, this is a people engagement approach that we have been using for years and years. And the first I is making sure, especially as board members, especially as administrators, as development officers, as people who are volunteers with this whole development, advancement, marketing, enrollment management effort, we've got to make sure that 24/7, 365, we are identifying people who can make a difference. And what I mean by that is that we know the new parents that are coming into our school, not necessarily in pre-K, not necessarily just in 9th grade, but any new parent that comes into our school, what do we know about them? Are we asking, for example, on our registration and on our information gathering forms, are we asking the question, what gifts would you enjoy sharing here at Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Elementary School? Are we asking that question? Or are we simply just saying to people, here are the list of opportunities for you to get involved, please sign up for? So as we do that, maybe by asking what gifts would you enjoy sharing, maybe we provide a list, a checkoff list of things like small group presenter, small group facilitator, photographer, horticulturist, whatever they may be. People like to give. They love to give, and especially they love to give with what they're good at. And so as we talk about identifying, the second I is we've got to inform. We've got so many tools. When I started in this back 30 years ago, the tools in the communication toolbox were limited. Today they're limitless. We are right now, for example, wrapping up a capital campaign in the Archdiocese of Mobile to build a new Catholic high school in Baldwin County. That's the Gulf Shores, Alabama area. There's no high school in Baldwin County. And right now, the campaign, the goal is 9.5. We're heading toward 8 million. And in the last week, in the final 45 days, we have opened up a Twitter account. We've opened up a Facebook page. And just in the last week, we have now over 2,000 followers across the nation and beyond that are realizing what is going on, and some of those people are getting involved. We have the ability with social media. We have the ability with websites. We have the ability with emails. We have the ability with hard copy to really, really inform. But we also want to let people know when we talk about informing, really direct mail and email do great things. Websites do great things. They announce, they position, and they reinforce. But nothing will ever substitute in communication for eyeball to eyeball and phone conversations. So that leads us to that third I of personally inviting people to belong, because belonging leads to believing when we personally invite people to belong, when we want them to be part of a strategic planning process, when we want them to be part of maybe a principal's cabinet that meets twice a year for lunch, and maybe we invite them to that. When we want to share with them our strategic plan priorities, or maybe the new vision that we have for the school, and we call our 20 people, then to go have a cup of coffee with them, not to ask them for money, but to just simply say, "Hi, Mr. Johnson, this is Frank Donaldson. I'm president, I'm principal of XYZ Catholic Elementary School or High School. Listen, I know that in terms of our relationship, you've been involved with us in the past, and what I've done is I've selected about 15 or 20 people that I want to sit down, have a cup of coffee with, because as we take a look at this new vision and this new plan that we're looking at implementing in many areas of the school, I wanted to run the draft by you. Could we maybe carve out 30, 45 minutes, have a cup of coffee, and I can kind of pick your brain to see if you think we're headed in the right direction?" 90% of the people you issue that kind of invitation to will say yes. Development/advancement is a people business. I always chide and kind of poke fun at the advancement directors and the development directors we work with when I call them at their school and they answer their phone, and I say, "Chad, what are you doing in your office?" "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, this is a people business. You need to be out of your office 60% of the time, talking to people, engaging people." So the personal invitation leads to people raising their hand and saying, "I would like to become involved," which leads, so that fourth I, involvement. Once they become involved, they then will help you implement, which is the fifth I. They'll help you implement that new parent welcome program. They'll help you implement that annual fund. They'll help serve on a core team. They'll help you implement the strategic plan. They'll help you implement new ways to engage alums in your Catholic school. They'll help you implement that major gift effort. They'll help you implement a new plan giving process that you want to set up. They'll help you implement. But once again, they need to feel like they really belong. And that leads to that sense of investment where they see themselves really as a steward. And that sixth I doesn't mean give me money. That sixth I says I'm a partner with you. I'm vested. I'm really part of you. And that seventh I says how do we continually improve what we're doing. So as you look at the seven I's, if I could encourage you to look at the seven I's from the perspective of a big circle spinning round and round, and inside of that circle are these smaller I's spinning round and round, and the synergy that is created from those involved in your Catholic school to those you will invite becomes dynamic. And so my challenge to you, our challenge as a company, anytime we do workshops, like tomorrow I'll be in Milwaukee doing a workshop and one in Green Bay on Friday, and it's the same presentation. Really, we're doing this morning. How do we engage people? How do we do that? How do we make that happen? And so the challenge that we issue is, here we are in the beginning months of the 14-15 school year. By June 30th, 2015, I challenge you to have engaged 100 new people into your Catholic school. That doesn't mean 100 new people give you money. That means you have engaged them. They feel like you've invited them to become meaningfully involved. Not just man the plant booth at the fair, not just sell pull tabs at bingo, but meaningfully inviting and involving and engaging them to really, really become part of your school. So as we look at that, as we look at the next slide, what we're saying is we really need to shift the paradigm from raising money to engaging people. And that is what really becomes key to make it work. Can it be done in the one-person development office? Very definitely it can. I was a one-person development officer back years and years and years ago, and we find many development officers that are doing just a bang-up job. But they've surrounded themselves with really good volunteers. And their board understands development. Their administration understands development. And they have board members who work with them on their core team, which we'll be talking about in just a minute. So yes, it very definitely can work. The one-person development officer does not have to always feel like the plate spinner in the circus. They do not have to always feel like, my goodness, I'm going from one fundraiser to the next fundraiser to the next fundraiser to the next fundraiser. They do not have to always feel that they're judged by one question: how much money did you raise? How much money did you raise? How much money did you raise? Because that is only a segment of what true development, Catholic development, is about. So when we talk about the one-person development office, we have, as we saw in the word we were using in the little agenda, the words keys to success. So let's look at some of those keys. The first one really is what we call realize the dimension of your role. In other words, understand that your role is not to come in as a development officer and run the bingo. That your role really is conceptually to really be about moving the vision and the mission and what this whole idea of Catholic school development is about, which is engaging people. And that the human side of it is that it's all about people. It's all about engaging people. It's all about having good processes to make that happen. And it's all about the ministry in terms of us considering ourselves as people who want to continue to build the kingdom of God. So realize the dimension of your role. As a development officer, a one-person development officer, you're going to come in contact with so many people if you do it correctly, as I'm sure you will. And once again, it's all about understanding without vision we perish. And so therefore, as we move this forward, you're the one that shares the vision. You are the one, along with board members and administrators and parent leaders and student leaders and faculty and staff leaders and alum leaders, you share this and you make sure people understand what it is that you're so excited about. So the first one is just understanding, as we look at that next slide, understanding the dimensions of your role, that there is a conceptual, there is a human, and there also is a technical side, meaning that you know the processes, you know how to implement an annual fund, you know how to implement a strategic planning process, you know how to implement, an alumni involvement process, you know a process of how to engage parents, you know a major gift process. You see, there's the art of development, and then there's also the science. The science can be learned, but the art must be acquired through experience. The science is, how do we do an annual fund? How do we do a major gift effort? How do we do a strategic plan? How do we set up an endowment? How do we set up a planned giving effort? How do we invite and engage new families into our Catholic school? How do we engage more alums? How do we go and invite the gifts? That's the science of development. We can teach and you can learn, and I'm sure many of you already know this. The science can be taught. The art of development, the art of Catholic development / advancement, that is an art, and it's only acquired through experience. And so, therefore, as we look at it, just remember that in terms of the dimension. So let's look at the second key. The second is establishing your credibility, and in terms of that, there are many, many opportunities to establish that credibility. There's in terms of this, realizing that you, as a development officer in a Catholic school, the ability to share your faith, the ability to share the fact of your commitment to that school, and to make sure that they see you as a person that continues to service that school. There are many, many ways to professionally grow. As a company at ISPD, we do workshops, we do webinars like this with Regina and NCEA. We're in the middle of a 25-city workshop tour, Milwaukee tomorrow, Green Bay Friday. That basically the title of our workshop tour is 25 Lessons Learned in 25 Years in Catholic School Development. But there is NCEA. There's American Association of Fundraising Professionals, the International Stewardship Council. There are things that your diocese would put on. There are things that other consulting companies do by way of workshops. There are all kinds of ways that you can professionally grow, and I think that's important. As we look at the next slide, there's some very specific things in terms of, these are things that are just reminders that you're dressing for success. You know, you're articulating your case. I always say that when we work with schools and help them hire and train development directors, one of the things in sitting in an interview I'm always looking for is, does that person have people skills? Do they have people skills, and can they articulate the vision, the mission, the purpose of the school, and can they do it with enthusiasm? This is a people business. It's a people business. And so, therefore, that development/advancement officer works with board members, works with core teams. Can that person rally the troops? Can that person really, realize that their place in the infrastructure is really going to be key, to being a way to establish their credibility? And they're always learning. They're always learning. Last night, myself and our vice president, Eric Goldschmidt, we were at St. Mary's School in Mobile, Alabama. St. Mary's has a development director that has been in place for 19 years. She has done an outstanding job, and she's the development director for the parish and the school. And Marcel has done a beautiful job. But you know what? Once again, she's been able to do a great job because she's always seeking to learn, even after being at this for 19 years. And in terms of that, like she said, and we met last night with the leadership groups into the little workshop, and even all of them said, even though we've done all this, we've been doing development as an elementary school and parish for almost 20 years now, and yet we still need to keep raising the bar higher. How can we get better? How can we engage more people? Because I said, what's your number one challenge right now? They said at one time we had hundreds of people involved in our development advancement stewardship effort, and today it's probably less than 60. We took our eye off the ball. And so that's what we were working with them a little bit last night. So establishing that credibility. Marcel has credibility because she's engaged people through the years, and she really does an outstanding job with that. The third little hint that we have is have a job description. I mean, you've got to have a job description that talks about the office management. You've got to have your job description should address planning, should address development dollars, meaning annual fund, things of this nature. A job description that addresses your communications effort, your special event fundraising, the ways you can engage people, that addresses enrollment management, or what used to be known as student recruitment, that addresses alumni involvement. And there are other pieces to development. Just want to call your attention to number 3 and number 5 because I want to clarify. Development, you see, what we see and say is that when it comes to revenue for a development effort, there's 2 kinds of revenue. There's what we call buy and sell dollars, and then there's what we call development dollars. Buy and sell dollars is number 5. Special event fundraisers, golf tournaments, candy sales, raffle calendars, auctions, galas, dinner dances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, of which we have been doing for it seems like thousands of years. I'm a LaSallian Christian Brother product, and Brother Gail, who's president of Rummel High School in New Orleans, always says, "Hey Frank, as a LaSallian Christian Brother, the FSC behind my name stands for Forever Selling Chances." So as we look at special event fundraising, that's what we're talking about, because it is buy, sell, buy, sell. However, development dollars, we're inviting people to invest. We're inviting philanthropic dollars. We're excited about what we're doing, and we're selling the vision. And there's no candy bar in return. There's no Christmas tree in return. There's no 12 bags of mulch for the spring garden in return. So I want to clarify those because I think it's important. The next key is number 4 on the next slide, and having a budget. This is a sample one that I pulled from, a Catholic school where the salary and benefits for the development officer was at $40,000. Well, you can read. Everybody can read the pieces coming up. I don't need to read it to you. But here's a sample a budget that this particular school was looking at. Keeping in mind, if you're just starting in development, it's not a quick fix. And usually return on investment is usually 2 to 3 years. So keep that in mind. So as you look at this, in terms of that budget, just a sample piece, but you'll notice some of the things that you have here are really important. And so that's just a sample by way of key to success. If we look at the next slide, you'll notice some of the pieces that produce revenue. The annual fund by year 2 or 3 will produce revenue. Major donors that you would invite and engage and cultivate, fundraising events, possible capital campaign, setting up planned giving efforts, establishing endowment, grant writing, memorial giving. All of these pieces produce revenue. And so a development officer on the funding side of it all is certainly going to realize that the budget is going to, be the necessities to making it work, but obviously there is revenue. For example, I always say, as you look at this, and I think it's really important, board members and administrators, as we look at this planned giving efforts that's set up, well, that may take years. If you're talking about wills, if you're talking about bequest, if you're talking about charitable remainder trust, if you're talking about uni trust, if you're setting up trust funds, if you're setting up endowment funds where you're not going to touch the corpus but going to reinvest it all, these take years to develop. So a good development effort on the money side of it all is not a quick fix, just to clarify that. The next slide to us is, if you take nothing away from this webinar today, and I'll say it tomorrow in Milwaukee, and I'll say it the next day in Green Bay. If you take nothing away from those 2 workshops, if you take nothing away from this webinar, please take this away, because this is the piece that makes it work. This is the piece that turns, as we talk about the one-person development office, and we talk about a no-fright zone, this is what makes it a no-fright zone. The core team. And it always is amazing to me that there's some pushback when we teach this. I don't know why, because we've had, over the last 25 years, we really have had a lot of success in establishing hundreds of these core teams across the country. This is not the development committee of the board. The development committee of the board usually is the core, is the base for this, but this is 15 to 18 people who are roll-up-your-sleeve folks. These are people that really are going to help you educate, they're going to help you facilitate, but above all, they're going to help you implement. They are the right arm of the development office. They're not backseat drivers. They're not advisors sitting in the back saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and how much money did you raise? The core team is crucial, I mean it, crucial to success of a development/advancement effort. You could have the most sophisticated advancement effort. I'm going to use, for example, 2 schools right now, Bishop Hendrick High School in Providence, Rhode Island, and Cecina Memorial High School in Indianapolis. Schools that have had development for years and years and years and years and years. And we had helped them and educated them on this core team concept. Right now, both of those schools would say, even though we've been doing development for over 20 years, I don't know how we did it without a core team. Because the core team becomes so important. And so they need to be, in the next bullet point, you'll see, they need to have training. They need to understand what their goals are. They need to understand rationale for existence, how often they're going to meet, how the development office is organized, etc. When you get this recorded version of this webinar, on the first slide, you'll see my email address. If you want more information on the core team, there's free information on our website, but I'll be glad to send you some more information. Just shoot me an email and say, Frank, I took the webinar with you and Regina. Please send me more information on the core team, and I'll be glad to. This is crucial to you really making things work. Once again, we always say 10% of what they do is help educate people about the development advancement efforts. 10% is they help you facilitate strategic planning, surveys, alumni input. But 80% of what they do is implement. They help you implement that annual fund. They help you implement that fundraiser. They help you implement that alumni gathering. They help you implement that president or principal's luncheon. They help you implement new parent welcome. They help you implement. They are vital to success. And so the next couple of slides just go into that and just reiterate that. and really just let you see, just what they're doing, and they work with priorities each month. They have specific roles. They may be helping entering data into a database or designing a logo. Maybe there's a graphic designer, maybe creating a newsletter, helping with implementing an annual fund, or creating a master plan for all fund. These are examples that other schools have used by way of implementation. So just put those down. And in terms of the next slide, you can look at that and say, hey, listen, here are different ways that you can look at it in terms of the assembly of a core team. Board members, definitely 4 or 5 board members should be on this core team. If you have a development committee of the board and you've got 4, 5, 6 people, they should be automatic or ex officio members of this core team. These are roll-up-your-sleeve workers. So let's go to the next key to success, and that is making sure you educate your inner circle, and in terms of what do we mean when we talk about development, what exactly development is not. Development is not just show me the money. Making sure what to expect, where you've got expectations and realization that it takes several years to firmly establish a development effort. And so as you look at the next slide, who needs to be educated? Well, all of these folks need to understand the messages we're talking about today, that the pastor, the principal, parish staff, faculty staff, and everybody can read as these come across the slide. These folks need to understand, oh, that's that development director. Oh, yeah, she's the one that raises money for the school. Boy, I'd like to have his job. He comes rolling in here at 10 o'clock in the morning. Man, that must be a cushy position. No, need to educate people on what this is about. And keep in mind, not just a one-time deal. You have new people every year. Sometimes you have new people every semester. So the next key is to educate that around that. The next key is build your efforts around people. This is a people business. We defined this about 20 minutes ago as the meaningful involvement of people in your mission and vision for the future. And so as you build all of this, keep in mind that you want to continually invite people as you do this, as you do input sessions and you do surveys and you do cup of coffee meetings, and there are all kinds of ways, to engage people. And so as we look at the next slide, you realize that this is a continuous process. The 7 I's: identify, inform, invite, involve. They'll help you implement. They become vested. They help you improve. This is all about people, all about relationships, and building all of this, as we move this forward. And so as you look at that, even the next slide drives this home even further. Invite people. I've always said, look at the first bullet point. Why in the annual fund, I realize it says fund, why in our annual funds and capital campaigns, why are we not inviting 3 gifts? The gift of prayer, the gift of service, the gift of financial support. Why not have a prayer card in our annual fund? Why not on the intention card invite the gift of prayer in our annual fund? Why not invite the gift of service? Why not invite the gift, obviously, of financial support? Why not give examples? We were doing a capital campaign in Murfreesboro, Tennessee about 5 or 6 years ago at St. Rose of Lima Parish and Elementary School, and we invited the 3 gifts, prayer, service, and financial participation, and they added 72 adorers to the Perpetual Adoration Chapel in that campaign because they invited the gift of prayer, and they listed under the gift of prayer, perpetual adoration, say a novena, say the campaign prayer, attend one mass extra a month, whatever it may be. So it's all about people. It's all about inviting them to share those gifts. You invite the faculty and staff in an annual fund. Well, maybe they cannot afford the financial piece, but they can certainly say a prayer for the success of it all. As we said, have a cup of coffee. Get out of the office. It's a people business. Like, for example, board members that are online taking this webinar today. I was with the Catholic school in Austin, Texas 2 weeks ago, St. Michael's Academy, and it was at a board meeting, and they have 14 members of their board. And I said, let me ask you this. I said, your role as board members are so vital, and all of you are volunteers, and they're doing a fantastic job. I said, and you're probably going to want to shoot me, but let me offer you something to do this fiscal year. I said, why don't you guys as board members every month take 5 people, maybe 5 parents, and call them. Take 5 people a month, there are 14 of you, so do the math, and call them and say, hi, Ms. Johnson, this is Frank Donaldson, and I'm a board member here at St. Michael's Academy. I just wanted to call, and our principal just wanted me to call and say hi, and just wanted to introduce myself as a board member and just say, how are things going for you and your daughter? How are things going for you and your son? I just wanted to see how the school year is moving along. Any questions you may have, any clarifications? Just wanted to reach out to you and see how your experience here is going here at St. Michael's. Why would we not do that? If I'm a board member, I would love to do that. You know, this is about people. Can you imagine the impact? 14 board members times 5, I think, if my math is right, Regina, isn't that 60? Or something like that, 70? I don't know. I taught English for many years, not math. But do the math on, let's say we did that for 6 months or 7 months. Gosh, we're reaching over 400 people personally, you know, and always end the conversation by saying, you know, Ms. Johnson or Mr. Johnson, you know, one of the things we want to ask is there anything that we can do for you guys? I mean, y'all are part of our faith community here at St. Michael's. So it is a people business, and that's what we see again in the next slide, reiterating that it is about people having good processes like phone outreach and realizing we are about building the kingdom. The next hint is think process, not program. And in terms of thinking process, not program, what we mean by that is a process, you know, has a beginning but no end. A program, though, is program thinking. You know, a process allows for evolution and change, but a program doesn't leave a lot of room for that. A process is ever present, becomes part of culture, but a program plugs in and it plugs out. So I think it's important, you know, the annual fund, that's a process, that's not a program. You know, enrollment management, that's a process, that's not a program. Planned giving, that's a process, that's not a program. You know, so as we look at the next slide, let's position for success. You know, making sure that with all the stuff we've been talking about, as we position for success, that we look at it and say, hey, listen, make sure we've got in the development effort, make sure we have good, clear, measurable goals that can be accomplished. You know, making sure that we communicate, making sure that our development officer is out meeting people. If you're brand new, if those of you who may be taking this webinar that are brand new to development, you've just opened up the office, what I always say to new development / advancement officers is work with your board, work with your administration, and have them identify the top 20 people to the school. Could be faculty, staff, could be donors, could be board members, could be alums, or whatever. Identify the top 20 people, and in the first 60 days, okay, go have a cup of coffee. Go have a cup of coffee. Hi, you know, Helen, I'm the new development director, as you know, and obviously you've served on the board for a couple of years, and I just wanted to pick your brain and say, hey, what do you think that would be good that I concentrate on? What do you think of the challenges here we face at Our Lady of Lourdes Elementary School? I'm using Our Lady of Lourdes, that's my home parish. What exactly, you know, I mean, once again, build the relationships, build the relationships. So in month 3, when the development director goes to the board meeting, you know, he or she is not going there to give a report and they don't know anybody. Oh, this is our new development director. Well, no. Helen, who's the new development director or the new board member or whatever, they've already had a conversation. They're already building those relationships because guess what? Many of those board members should be part of that core team. So position, you know, position for success. The next few slides that Kate will put up, I think it's the next actually 5 slides. You can just go ahead and turn them as we move on along. These are just hints on how to position for success, making sure that the office is in proximity to the school. These are just logistical things as Kate turns the slides. Just, you know, you've got access to copy machines. You have the tools to make sure that the development effort is going to work, that you've got regular meetings set up with the pastor or principal or whatever, that you've got a place on campus to meet people, that you're on the agenda in the next slide for, you know, to meet and give reports to the faculty and the school board and the parish council and the like, that you know, this next one may be controversial, but I believe in it. There's a credit card for the development office. Because you may take somebody to have a cup of coffee down at Starbucks, you know, that you've got your package all set up, and that's all done with administration. And you these are just hints. These are just pieces and places that we see that are successful. And the last one could be controversial too. Are you a member of the administrative team? I've always believed in that. That may be good for your culture, may not be good for your culture. I don't really know. That's left up to you as administrators to make that call. The next key to success is really important. You know, development directors, we don't, you know, back when I was one, it wasn't an 8-to-5 job. You know, I mean, realize that it's a whatever it takes attitude. You're driven by the compass. You're not driven by the clock. You know, and have an understanding with your pastor, your principal, your president regarding time off. Yes, indeed, you may come the next day at 10 o'clock because you were out the night before to 10 p.m. with that phone-a-thon, that alumni phone-a-thon. And once again, that's the importance of educating people about it all. The next couple of slides are just kind of tongue-in-cheek. You know, I always did this. You know, and this right here is one that you never want to see. You know, we don't want the development officer to stay cooped up, I think. The next one is one that people always say, you know, what's that person making? Must be making high bucks. My first year as a development director, my first year salary, of course I'm showing my age now, my first year salary as a development director was $19,500. So Regina said she was going to pay me more than that, though, so I'm really excited. But the next slide just says what kind of hours is that new development director. You know, I see her strolling in around 9 o'clock. I wish I had her. You know, these are just tongue-in-cheek little slides that we thought, you know. The next hint is this is key. It's just, if you were to say to me, okay, Frank, you said core team was important. What's the next most important? Are you working from a strategic plan? You know, or are you always in crisis mode? Are you working proactively or reactively? Are you just dodging bullets, or are you the one firing the gun? So what we're saying with this hint is making sure you have a written strategic plan in place for your development advancement effort. It's not just a couple of dots or bullet points on a sheet of paper. And that plan needs to be shared, and there are processes to put this in place. And so that's number 2 in importance in today's webinar. Have a written strategic plan for advancement that has been created with people input. Really, really important. The next slide is that Kate's going to put up, and I'm going to just kind of have her pull things in. You can go ahead and get it, and then you can stop right there after you get the next one, Kate. Okay, good. We'll keep it right there. Perfect. Thank you. You know, here's what this is. Catholic schools need an infrastructure, and here's what we've seen through the years in terms of the infrastructure. What we say is that the school leadership, the board, the administration, and others, the pastor, the principal, the president, whomever, has said, you know, we need a development office. And so that's why we have quotes around it. Back when I was an administrator, the development office was a 4x8 table in my office. But we say we need an office. And notice we have quotes around it because sometimes it is a volunteer office to begin with. Sometimes it is a one-person office. You know, we've worked with one-person offices. We're working with some now that are multi-person offices. But basically it depends upon your situation. It depends upon a lot of things. But the key to it all is those 2 things on either side of that development office. I'm going to go to core team first. Having the core team in place where they educate, they facilitate, and they implement. Remember those 3 words? We said 10% educate, 10% facilitate, 80% implement. And then building your development efforts around people fuel, which is the right. And these are just samples where you do interviews and surveys, questionnaires, and cup of coffee meetings and planning sessions. These are just, this right here, what's on your screen right now, is crucial in setting up successful development. These boxes here, those Catholic schools who have these boxes in place, churning and clicking, then can move to the next boxes where we say set up some type, and look, I'm using this term, Development Advisory Board. That could be any name you want to use. It could be task force. It could be Development Advisory Council. Could be Development Strategic Planning Group. But they're going to create, okay, this, what's next in this strategic plan. And then the boxes that Kate's going to populate right now are just sample planning areas that you look at and you say, which of these boxes do we want to do planning in? Which ones do we need to have a strategic initiatives in terms of this? So this is what we call an advancement development infrastructure, where you've got the core team, a philosophy of people engagement, you've got a written strategic plan, and you're looking at areas that you want to develop strategic initiatives in, like the annual fund, like involving alums, like making sure you have a master plan for fundraising. These are all the processes to make development as a system work. So let's look at another key to success. Making sure you evaluate your effectiveness. That's another piece, this TFS test. This is a test we created as ISPD, and once again, this is another one of those pieces that I'll be glad to send you a copy of this if you would want it. Just shoot me an email and I'll send it right out to you. But evaluating the effectiveness, making sure with your core team you do a SWOT work. At the end of this fiscal year. What are the present strengths of our development efforts? What are the present weaknesses of our development efforts? What are the future opportunities of our development efforts? What are the future threats to our development efforts? So, and then obviously meeting with administration, making sure you're plugged in, making sure that it's a partnership, that the board, that the administration, that the development office, that the core team all have, to move all this forward. The other is just the next key is, do you understand change process? And anytime you introduce something new in a Catholic school, what we find is that change process is very much alive. Oh, that's that development effort, huh? Well, I'll never work here. We tried that about 10 years ago. Didn't work then, won't work now. This is the percentages. What we see is that with new things such as development, a new annual fund process, new strategic planning process, new alumni involvement process, new plan giving process, new enrollment management process, whatever it may be. 8% are going to be innovators. They're going to lead the way. 17% right there with you. 29% early adapters. 29% late adapters, meaning they're going to sit back and say, is this really going to work? And 17% will try and destroy. So just understand change process as a development officer, as a board member, as an administrator. It's alive and it's well. And that's just important to understand. The next one in fundraising, the fundraising part of development is, we always say, don't get bogged down with a 800-pound gorilla. And what is this? This is tongue-in-cheek, as you can tell. These are well-intentioned people who have all the advice in the world. They can tell you how they raised $25 billion 25 years ago. They organized the best plan in the world with 2 other people. It can help you only if you follow their advice. We'll give you all kinds of money if you do A, B, and C. Will lead you to the big money in town. They know where the big people who have all the money are, and in reality, they only see development as show me the money. I don't know if you've met them, but they're alive, they're well, and they're well-intentioned. I think that hyphenated word up at the top, the third hyphenated word, they are well-intentioned. They really are. But they've worked possibly in nonprofit fundraising, or maybe they've worked on just the fundraising part of development. So don't let that person or persons bog you down. Lastly, what I'd like to cover, and I'm just going to have Kate turn some slides, is there's something that is important to understand, is that there is a cycle of development officers. Marcel last night at St. Mary's has certainly gone this. The beginning years are what we call the beginning stage, where you really are learning, you're setting up the office, you're meeting a lot of people, you're in a way mimicking rather than originating and creating. You're focusing on immediate needs, learning to work with decision makers, getting to know how that moves along. But then as when we move to the next slide, you realize that there's an advancing stage, in this professional growth, and that's years 3 or 4, and that's progressing beyond how to the what. And really you're kind of focusing the binoculars and knowing what works best and getting rid of some things that maybe have been part of your history for 20 years and they don't work anymore. Inviting and engaging more people, inviting the three gifts, of prayer and service and finance. And then there's that next slide that says, what happens beyond year 5? And so what we see is that you integrate. You're learning the whys and the ways. You're focusing on a systemic approach. You really have developed and maintained relationships and fostered partnerships between the donors and the school. And it really is something that's fully integrated. And it really is exciting. There are those that go to this next level, and that's exciting. And these are the ones that we call the lifers. They see themselves as facilitating development processes. They see themselves as being catalysts for change. They see themselves and that's the next slide. They see themselves this way. They want to change and articulate vision and serve as agents for change process. And then they see themselves, beyond just the role that they play in their own Catholic school. They also see this as being people that really play a larger role, a role in the larger community. Like the next slide says, they work with the diocese. They're a voice in the diocese. They help set up development director associations. They really are making sure that they help. The next slide, these are lifers. These are people that work on, let's say, a secondary school level. An elementary school is just coming on board. They help them. They become stewards of development resources. And, these are really important. They really let you see this role as a development officer as being more than just, okay, I've got to run the dinner dance auction, get sponsors for the 18th hole of the golf tournament. It puts it in a bigger perspective. Without vision we perish. I always believe that. There's got to be a small hat you wear, but there's got to be a big hat you wear. And then this is the big hat. It gives you a sense of real purpose. I find, and then as you look at beyond the 5 years, what are the processes that you work on? Obviously, the annual fund. Obviously, business community outreach. And look at these things as you move beyond 5 years. These are things that really is the science of development, where with your experience you apply the art. And these are all samples, as we look at this, of processes in the development/advancement system that make it all hum, that make it all work. Those of you that have knowledge of all of this, you've mastered the science and probably the art. For many, many, many people we work with, they're just learning the science, and the art will come as they work through all of this in terms of moving their schools forward. So if I had to draw on two things, I would say in conclusion for my role, number one, the core team is so very important. And number two is having that written strategic plan in place, and the umbrella that encompasses those two is making sure you realize that development is about the involvement of both in your mission and vision for the future. So as we look at this, any questions or clarifications? Regina, any comments on your end as we begin to move into the home stretch of today's webinar?
Yes, Frank, what I was thinking, I work with schools doing strategic plan. It's school-wide. And I hear you say the development director should have a strategic plan. So how do you see the development director working with maybe that school-wide strategic plan to make a better fit for him or her?
Right. Well, obviously in the school-wide plan, one of the planning areas is going to be labeled or called revenue, resources, development, marketing, and advancement, finance, whatever. That is the place, that's the bucket that in a school-wide plan, that is the bucket where the strategic plan for development can be housed and can be created. I would say, Regina, just in my experience, that's probably 10% of Catholic schools who are doing that school-wide plan on a regular, consistent basis and renewing it every 5 to 7 years. What we see is that those schools that are not doing it, so to answer your question directly, that's where it would fit in that bucket. What we see are encouraging schools to look at is when there's not that long-range planning effort for the entire school in place, that it's so very important that the school do a strategic plan just for development / advancement / enrollment management / marketing. And that is a process unto itself that can be created in the school and once again creates that written plan of action. The core team is very involved, the board is very involved, and then seeking input from others to come and offer their best wisdom on some of the challenges that development effort faces. So that's an A and a B answer to your question.
No, and I concur, Frank, not all schools, and you're right, probably that percentage. But then this, I was thinking even if they did one after the development plan, they could fold the development plan into that. But you're right, it needs to be created by the development people because most of the times there are no plans. Correct.
Right on target. Yeah, right. Here's a question, with enrollment down nationally, how do you create a positive environment? That's a great question, if we have about 10 hours. You know, it all goes back to culture. You know, it really does. I mean, granted, there are many tools in the toolbox of enrollment management. Granted, there are many hundreds of pieces on the science of enrollment management. But one of the questions I always ask is, what is your culture like? And I'm not saying that it's not good. All I'm saying is your culture a warm, welcoming culture for everyone? Does everyone see themselves as quote-unquote customers of each other? Do parents feel like they are a very vital part? Are you engaging them with things like board members calling them and inviting them? Are you involved with faculty and staff? We just got finished doing this ultimate survey with a high school in the Midwest in the last month. And it is, the ultimate question is one which if you've not used before, you can go online and Google the ultimate question. It comes out of Harvard Business School, and the ultimate question is, we like to do it to parents, we like to do it to student leaders, we like to do it to alumni, we like to do it to faculty, staff. And the ultimate question, I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, is, let's just use Our Lady of Lourdes. The ultimate question is, on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being least likely, 10 being highly likely, how likely is it that you would recommend Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Elementary School to your friends, your family, and your colleagues? And then part B of that question says, if you gave us a score of less than 10, what would we have to do over the next 6 to 12 months to get your score up to a 9 or 10 when we invited you to take the survey again? So you get both quantitative data and you get qualitative data, and you understand the percentage of people who actually do promote you. The reason why I throw that up in answer to this question is because I think it's important that you understand your culture. How many people are promoting your school? What is that percentage? So that survey gives you excellent information about how many people are actually, and out of that, once you Google it, you come up with what's called the NPS, Net Promoter Score of your school. And so the culture is the question I always ask. With decreasing enrollment nationwide, how can we remain positive? I guarantee you, a school that is warm, welcoming, engaging, the high school I was referring to in the Midwest that did this, the number one piece that came out of that survey was lack of affirmation. The faculty and staff did not feel affirmed, the parents did not feel affirmed, the students did not feel affirmed, and the administration did not feel affirmed. The lack of affirmation. So once again, culture is something that warm, welcoming, engaging. I mean, you've got just so many things clicking. people call the school, people come into the school, the way people are received, the list is endless. That to me is key. Let's see. Kate, can you go back to the one right before that? When starting, here we go. When starting a development program from scratch, do you recommend initially focusing on the process or on the people aspect? That's a great question. Regina, my answer would be you concentrate on both, because the process of putting together the core team would be number one to me, along with the process of evaluating how you've been doing with like that TFS test. But then the development officer is going to be out there having a cup of coffee with the top 25 people. So really it's the people aspect of inviting and engaging the core team, and it is the process of assembling the core team, you know, as well as building it around people. That's a great question.
Yes, I would concur, Frank, because you can't sit back and wait just to build a relationship. You have to be doing, too, which would engage, people would see that you're doing something and they'd be excited about it.
Right. Okay, last question is development, marketing, and enrollment all fall under one department here at our school. We have a marketing enrollment committee that involves staff and parents. I'm not sure if these same people would make up a development team. Should we create a separate development team or try to refine and make one committee including all those departments? Excellent question. We hear it all the time. What I would do, just a recommendation, is that you have a development core team, and underneath that core team, one of the major subcommittees of the core team is the enrollment management team. So everybody is meeting as one, but yet there's the subcommittees underneath that, and one of those key subcommittees, because many schools have enrollment management core teams right now, and put it all under that umbrella. So it's systemic and it's not created in a vacuum, and the enrollment management team is not out here, you know, not plugged into the hole. That would be my recommendation.
Frank, I was thinking of a question for you. As I look on the websites of all these search firms, you see a whole list, development director. There seems to be a shortage because you see that like 10, 15 of them listed on each of those sites. So what would be the most effective way to recruit somebody when the demand is so high out there?
Yeah, the demand is high. In the development director searches, I think there's actually 3 levels that we always recommend, and we even work with schools. The first level is look internally. Many of the greatest development directors in the world have come from your 4 walls. They have been administrators, they're teachers right now, they're board members, they're alums, they're parents. So look internally. Just look internally. The second level is to go outside of your building, local and regionally, and that means putting ads in the Catholic newspapers in the dioceses surrounding your area, making sure you have announcements in all the parishes, making sure that you send out announcements to all feeder sources, making sure that you put an announcement if you have an AFP chapter, Association of Fundraising Professionals, making sure that you use different types of places like that where you can let your parishes, your feeder schools, or your feeder sources, your dioceses, let them know about this, that you have that position. We don't really recommend putting this into local city newspapers. We just haven't had a lot of success, and the junk that comes along with it is so time consuming. The third is to go nationally and do things like through NCEA, through websites. As a company, we'll be more than happy to post your job description and job announcement on our website. We do that all the time for Catholic schools. But I think looking at publications like Chronicles of Philanthropy, taking a look at your national fundraising publications, taking a look at going online. There are various search engines that allow you to post job sites, and I'm sure you know those electronically. So those are the 3 levels we look at. I would say the first 2 are more effective than others because looking internally, 1, and then number 2, going outside of that circle.